Good morning, people. All right, so the bobber needs new clutch. So this is the clutch cover. By the way, for those, the bobber original is a 2004 Honda VT600 or a Shadow 600 VLX. So the engine's all basically stock. So anyway, so clutch is behind here. So what I've done already is I've removed the exhaust pipes to get access. I've done this before without removing exhaust pipes, but it's a major pain in my ass. It's pretty easy to take the pipes off, so do that. I've also already drained the oil. Needs an oil change anyway, but you have to drain the oil because it's all going to be there. And have the bike leaning on its center stand, so any remaining oil is shunted to the other side. So it shouldn't be too messy. So to get in here, I've removed or disconnected the clutch cable, and then it's a bunch of bolts all the way around here. I'm going to remove all of those, and then there's a couple of like, where is it? Little right around here, behind here is a little pry spot. Right here is another one that you can pry on, and basically you need to, once you get it, all those removed, or the bolts removed, you're going to need to pry off the cover, and then we'll get access to the clutch plate. So I'll come back when I've got that done. All right, voila, that was pretty painless. So we've got clutch pack right here. Springs are underneath this cap plate here, which we're going to take off in a second. But I want to point out a couple things. So first, you look at your clutch plates. See right here, these are all your friction plates right here. And you see how this front plate is offset a little bit and set in a different slot. When you pull these out, keep them in order. As you pull them out, pay attention to them. The front plate is actually different. It's a little slightly different size, a slightly different profile. When you get your pack of new plates, they're gonna have one that's different. It's called the B plate. You got the A plates and then the B plate. And in between the B plate and the A plate are gonna be some kind of special spring washers. Make sure you put those back in the same order they came out in. If you're in here, like this down here is the oil pump. Got tension, loose tension on the chain, that's fine. It's not the timing belt, so that's all good. So basically then behind this plate, you can kind of see in there some springs, there's been clutch springs. A while back when I first bought this bike, I actually replaced those springs with some stiffer springs, give a little better feel on the clutch. But so basically now I'm gonna remove this cover plate and get to those springs. So we'll come back when I do that. All right, now I've got the plate off. There's the plate and the springs. Now back here, we gotta remove this nut. Impact driver, make that real easy, because this is gonna want to move against the engine. But right down here at the bottom, she's got that little indent there. So it's a little washer there. So you need to straighten that out with hit it with a center punch or a flathead screwdriver or something. Kind of bend that back, keep that unlock that, and then pull that out. I also want to point out something while I'm here. So these are the bolts that held the cover on. They go in all these little holes around here. There's a whole bunch of them. When you're putting them back on, torque them to spec. Do not over torque them. One of the things I discovered when we were working this bike before me, apparently over torqued one right there and broke it off. So the one that was in there wasn't the right size. They replaced it with a different bolt. They rethreaded the hole and everything. So in this case, it's getting by. It's been working fine for 61,000 miles. I'm not gonna fuck with it, but just torque to spec. Check your specs, okay? All right, so now I'm gonna pull this nut off, and that's gonna allow me to pull this clutch pack out. So I'll be back for that. All right, so now I got all the plates out. So I'm gonna show you, these are the old plates came out. So it consists of a bunch of sandwiches of, these are the friction plates. These are what I'm gonna replace. And you can see these are very glazed and worn out. And then between each friction plate is a steel plate. Now, you don't usually need to replace these, but if you see that they're blue, it means the steel is heated up so much that it's got a blue tint to it. In that case, you're going to want to replace those. These were in good shape. So coming all the way back to the front, when I first come out, you can see, what is it? This is the the B, which is the one that goes in the front, and this is the other ones are all the same. So you see this one is a little bit different. That's the one that's going to go in the front. And in between this guy and the next steel plate are these two pieces. So this is the spring and the judder, and they look almost the same, but if you pay close attention, the spring is the front one. This guy right here, it's flat, and the judder has a little bit of a warp to it or twist to it, so it's like at an angle. It's really hard to see on this video, but so you want to make sure you put those back in the proper order, the order they came out, and also check your manual, your factory manual spec if you want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take new ones, which I have here, and I'm going to stick them back in. I'm going to stack them exactly the way they came out of the bike. So starting from the back, starting from against here, we start with the friction plate, then we're going to put a steel plate, friction plate, steel plate, friction plate, steel plate, all the way back in until I've got it all built back up, and then reassemble is the opposite. Pretty simple. But the new plates are down here sitting in oil. It's a good idea to let them sit and soak in oil for a little while, absorb that oil. And so pull this one out here. This is the B. So probably hard to see on video, especially since it's greasy in oil, but you can see how the friction, the cork on there is not glazed. It's more raised. So this is what you're looking for. This is the difference. Let's see if I can pull out a separate one here. So compared to, so you can see difference. And like the cork's all worn off on the old ones and it's brand new on the new ones. So that's what you're looking for. So I'm gonna go ahead and start stacking everything back in. Just a bunch of sandwiches. It's real easy. All right, now so here's one of the tricky things. You see the steel plates here have all the teeth on the inside. And in the back here, you see there's some a tooth here that lines up. So one of the important things to do is get these teeth all lined up so that when you insert this piece back in, I'm not sure what the official piece is called, but anyway, when you insert it back in, it needs to thread all the way down to the bottom. And so you want to do it very carefully, which is easier said than done when you're holding the phone. And see, and as I do that, holding the phone, I move them out of alignment. So I'm gonna put the phone down, but point being that, because you need this piece of seat all the way down. So you want to be very careful about how you align all your little pins, okay? Or all your little teeth. All right. Okay, so this is embarrassing. I was talking about torquing things down to specified torque specs and putting the clutch springs back on and putting the screws back on at torque. Like using a torque wrench set to 9 foot-pounds, 2 of the bolts broke off. One of them, like I thought it was the clicking on the torque wrench. The other one, I was like, no, it wasn't. Or maybe the second one broke off when I was pulling it back out. Anyway, but using the torque wrench set to 9 foot-pounds, they broke off. So now I've had to disassemble the clutch, pull out this plate, and I have to somehow remove these 2 bolts and replace them. I'm guessing it's probably just the bolts were weakened from too many heat cycles or whatnot, but so that's gonna set me back. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get these out, order new bolts, wait for those to arrive. So to be continued. All right, at long last, we're back. The new pressure plate arrived. So that's gonna replace this guy with the broken off screws in it. I've got the new individual screws, and to replace the ones that broke off at less than specified torque. And while I've been waiting, I've had the clutch plates, the new ones, sitting in oil, soaking, to replace these old worn out ones. So, I'm gonna pick up where I left off. So, basically, I'm gonna begin reassembling the clutch. This whole clutch pack is gonna go on top of here. It's all gonna go back in there, and then we're gonna attach the springs and the pressure plate there and put it all back together. So, stay tuned. All right, now I showed in a previous video shot before everything went wrong, the importance of lining up the teeth inside here so that this top plate would all line up and go all the way down. Now before you put the springs and the bolts back in, you want to make sure that this is all sitting pretty flush. And see, I've got a little gap there still, which means that this top plate isn't completely in all the teeth. So you're gonna have to kind of wiggle it around and get it so that it's exactly where it needs to be. Sometimes a little tapping helps. Important note, tapping. I use the hammer, creates a little bit of vibration, sometimes helps those plates vibrate into alignment better, more easily. You do not want to hit this hard. If you cannot get it to wiggle in or a little bit of tapping to get it to just seat better, take it back out, realign the teeth, and try again. Do not hit it with a hammer. Little bits of taps sometimes help. If not, take it back apart. But fiddle with that and make sure that it's sitting flush the way it was when it first came out. Otherwise, you're not going to be engaging the clutch, and you're going to have to take the whole thing apart again. So make sure that everything is sitting flush and flat. Don't just, because it feels firm doesn't mean it is. Now I'm going to have to put my camera down and get both hands in there to get it exactly where it needs to be. But until you get that completely seated, do not proceed, because otherwise you got to take the whole thing apart and start over, okay? All right, now I've got the springs inserted, the bolts loosely inserted, and the spring plate in place. You might notice that there's just a ball bearing in here, but it doesn't seem to be attached to anything. This is really interesting. So this is the inside of the cover, and when you pull your clutch lever, it's actually going to rotate that, and you see that plate, that little round plate in the middle there, pushes in. When that pushes in against this, and when the engine's going, this square plate is spinning really fast, and that plate's gonna come in here, and it's gonna stop that. At the same time, what is happening is these springs are pulling all of these all these friction plates tight together with the steel plates, and that's what's engaging the clutch. So they're all holding together basically by tension and friction. And when you pull your clutch lever and it pushes this, it opens these springs up a little bit and takes the tension off of these plates and allows them, the friction plates and the steel plates between them, to spin freely from each other. So that's when you disengage the clutch. That's all it is. It's really, really simple mechanism. But here's the important part. As you may have figured out before, make sure that you're using proper torque. You do not want to over torque these guys. They will break off, and then you're screwed and you go back to where I just did. Anyway, but when you're tightening these down, go a little bit at a time, you know, boom, boom, boom. You want to treat it like you would lug nuts on a car. You don't want to just tighten one all the way down and then come back and do the others. You want to go like, do this one, then do the opposite one. Then do this one, then the opposite one. Then back here, back here, back here, right here. So you want to basically skip one each time around. If you've got like 5 of them on there, they'd be like, you do 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. So basically you're just going to keep doing that until you get it snug, and then you're going to do it to torque. In this case, on the VLX, it is 9-pound torque. So make sure you have your torque wrench and you do that properly. You really do not want to break these off. It's a pain in the ass. Okay? All right, there it is, all properly installed and torqued down to where it should be. Next step is to reinstall the housing. There are some locating pins on those. Make sure you have those. And also, it needs a gasket. In this case, I don't have the factory gasket. I couldn't locate one that I could get in a reasonable amount of time. But the last time I did this with gasket maker, which worked fine, 30,000 plus miles, no leaking. So all I'm gonna do is just take a razor blade, scrape it off, clean it off really good, and then reapply gasket maker and install the housing. All right, and there you have it. Everything's back installed. Do not forget to put the oil in. Refill the oil. Everything's back assembled. The cover's on. I've attached the clutch cable. Now, the next thing I'll have to do is adjust the clutch play, make sure that it's engaging where it should be and all that stuff. That's a completely different issue. There's lots of videos on that you can find online. But that's how you replace the clutch on your motorcycle. All right. Hope this is helpful to some people. Why don't you leave a comment, let me know if you have any other questions or if it's helped you in some way. And if you're running a Honda VT600, Rebel, Shadow, anything of that era, do you also find these bolts, especially this one down in here, next to impossible to get to? What a pain in the ass.